Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Talks at Google event to celebrate International Day for People with Disabilities 2021. My name is Dennis McGrath, and I work on Google's Accelerated Growth team out of our office in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Go Blue. We will be taking some questions at the end, so if you do have any questions for our speaker today, please go ahead and put them in the comments section below this video. But I am here today to interview one of the top athletes, Paralympic or otherwise, in the entire world. The athlete that I'm about to speak with is a three-time Paralympic gold medalist and currently holds two active world records in track and field. And did I mention that he didn't even start running until 2 years ago? This athlete is a dual Team USA athlete. He is a sprinter on the US Para Track and Field national team and is also a midfielder on the United States Para National seven-a-side soccer team. He's also an up-and-coming public speaker and frankly is one of the most impressive individuals that I've come across in my time with the Paralympics. Now, I am by no means an expert, but I have been involved in the Paralympics since around 2009. And the list of impressive people that I've met is pretty much a mile long. But this individual truly stands out. And it's not just because of his supreme athletic accomplishments or ability, but more importantly, the challenges that he had to face to get there and his willingness to be transparent about those challenges that he had to face and continues to face to get to the top of the game. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring out Nick Mayhew.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey, Nick, how's it going, man?
It's going really well. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So, Nick, I guess just to kick things off, you got a pretty cool background behind you. And I know that you spent a couple hours on a plane earlier this week flying out to Italy. So how are things out there?
It's amazing. I've been here for almost 2 days now. The jet flag really kicked my butt today. I had a really long nap. I didn't wake up until 3 p.m. Italy time. But yeah, I'm here visiting some friends and working a bunch and, just enjoying, traveling a little bit, trying to get back to what's normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is great to hear. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that one of the friends that you're visiting, people in the audience may or may not be familiar with. He's current U.S. men's national team and Juventus star Weston McKennie. So I've got to ask,
Mhm.
Nick, did Weston bring you out there to help him with some of his finishing drills?
Yeah, actually, I'm at his house right now. He's in the living room, in the other room watching a movie. And he's got a pitch. He's got a goal right here. So I don't know if we'll be able to train a little bit, but I'm going to with or without him. I know he has his daily training with Juve, but yeah, it's hopefully I can give him some pointers and maybe he can give me some as well.
Yes, very, very cool, very cool. And I know you probably can't speak to this too much, but do we have a potential Juventus transfer incoming?
Probably not. I might stick to track and field. It's going pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I know people are probably like, well, they're talking about soccer, they're talking about track and field. What exactly is going
Hmm.
on here? So let's go ahead and get to the really interesting stuff, which is talking about your athletic journey. So as I mentioned earlier on in the show, you haven't really been aware of the Paralympics or participating in it for a terribly
Hmm.
long amount of time. In fact, I believe that you didn't hear about the Paralympics until 2017 after the Rio Games. So I'm curious, what was it like being in your early 20s and discovering the Paralympic community for the first time?
Yeah, it was a very unique experience because, to have lived 14 years of my life not, knowing of my disability, living that long and playing soccer at such an elite level my entire life. I played at the top level of soccer growing up at every age group and, going into high school, playing for the DC United Academy at the time. And then, having the experience that I did in having a grand mal seizure and being told I had this disability my entire life. And I was giving an explanation for, everything that I had felt my whole life on my left side. It was at that point was pretty tough to then try to go back into able-bodied sports and regain all the confidence that I had lost, and really struggled with that. But then going to being recruited to a Division 1 university, and playing, succeeding there, and hiding the fact that I was disabled this entire time to then, find out about the Paralympics, I was 21 years old. It was a very unique feeling of, sort of frustration that it took me that long to, realize there was a whole world that I knew nothing about, that it would accept me, that I could compete in. And there was a bunch of things that, went into it. But it was a very positive experience knowing it was just like this whole world had opened up to me. That I could, play football, play soccer. Being here in Italy, call it football. Everyone gets mad at me if I say soccer, but playing soccer,
Yeah.
and then, going into running track and, just trying to figure out everything and discovering this whole new world was amazing. And it's been such an incredible experience to date.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an incredible experience, but it sounds like you not only discovered a lot about this new community, but you also learned a lot about yourself along the way. So what would you say were the biggest things that you discovered about yourself as you were experiencing this community for the first time?
Uh, it's been a battle for sure because being diagnosed with cerebral palsy when I was 14, I grew up always knowing that there was something wrong, or my left side was just different from my right, my left from my right. And I was never given an explanation why, and I really hid it from everybody because I didn't want people to notice that I had a limp in my left leg. I didn't want people to notice that I couldn't play the piano or couldn't type on a keyboard with my left hand like I could my right. I couldn't tie my shoes till a certain age, and I actually used to lock myself in my room at my house, away from my mom and my brother to try to teach myself how to walk back and forth without a limp in my left leg, just because I didn't want people to notice that there was anything different. And this is all without knowing I was disabled. So, to then be diagnosed as a disabled person, a disabled athlete, and to discover this disability was very eye-opening, but very frustrating. I was 14. I was a very defiant teenager, a very defiant kid. Uh, God bless my mom and my parents to, have to deal with me. I was a pain, and then, understanding that going into the Paralympics, there was something, going to college and, hiding it, every single day for 3.5 of my 4 years there. I would stay after. My coach would make me stay after and do extra drills with my left foot to, dribbling drills, crossing drills, shooting drills, just to develop my left side because they just, thought it was my weaker foot and I needed to get better. And it's things that I wanted to do because I wanted to be the best athlete I could do, with or without my disability. And then, when I joined the team and a news article came out that, I had joined the Paris seven-side national team, that I was a disabled athlete, they actually, I had them wait off a couple of days because I wanted to sit down my coaches and my teammates and tell them. And so they would hear it from me rather than hearing it in the news. And it was very, it was very tough. I was having an identity crisis, just I was very stubborn because there's such a negative connotation with the word disabled, with disability. With the Paralympics, people just immediately think of the Special Olympics. They don't even know what the Paralympics are. So it was very, it was very frustrating to begin with. And then, I was very negative to it. I was, I didn't want to be correlated with the word disabled because there's such a negative sort of tone to it. And then I started to have such positive feedback. Kids and parents started reaching out and asking questions, positive and real questions. Whether it be about me or what my parents did growing up and how they could identify what they should do with their disabled son or daughter, who wants to be an athlete. The avenues they could take. So it's been as negative as it have been positive, but more recently it's been a lot more positive. I've been able to see the positive effect my life, my story, and the Paralympics has had on millions of people, and it's only getting better. So I think there's a positive and negative to it, but me personally, it's just I've been trying to figure out and learn more about myself, about the sport of Paralympics, and I'm more focused on what I can do for the community, disabled or not, off the field and off the track, rather than on it. All those accolades, the world records, everything is the medals. They're priceless. But what's more important to me is the effect that I can have off the pitch and off the track. So both good and bad.
Yeah, no, it's definitely both good and bad, and I think it's really admirable that you're not just settling for all of the accomplishments on the field and on the track. You want to take that one step further and pave the way for the next 100,000 Nick Mayhews in the world, right? Now, I
Absolutely.
know that people are probably still a little bit confused because they're like, well, they're talking about soccer, they're talking about track and field. So to clarify this situation, so you went to Radford University to play soccer, D1 soccer, competed at a very, very high level there. And then you joined the US men's Paralympic 7-a-side soccer team. And that kind of culminated with a couple of different events, winning the US Player of the Year with a disability in 2019, which is like absolutely incredible. But then you changed. You made a transition and you moved to start to train for track and field in Tokyo 2020. So can you tell us a little bit more about like why you made that transition and like how does a soccer star go to becoming a track star?
Yeah, so actually, the year of 2019, the year I won US Soccer Player of the Year, which I honestly almost forgot. But it was such an incredible thing for me because I mean I grew up thinking, dreaming of playing for the national team, playing at the highest level, and then to go and win that award was such an amazing thing, and such an amazing, I guess, feat or achievement that I had, but and I always when I accepted it and they had me posting about it, thank my teammates and everything because it's such a cool thing for me. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without my teammates and the incredible year that we had there. And I remember in 2019 we were in Peru, and I was speaking with my soccer coach, and he informed me that the that para 7-a-side soccer actually got taken out of the Tokyo Games. It got taken off the program because there wasn't a female counterpart to the team, and which makes total sense. We didn't have a female team, and other sports do, and they wanted to bring in another male sport that
Right.
had a female counterpart to make it even. And I got frustrated because we don't have a female team, which actually has now changed. They actually are hosting their first tryout in January in 22, and they'll be playing their first tournament in April, which is amazing. So I'm super excited about that, and hopefully they'll be able to come back in the games in the future. But yeah, they told me that, and then so I started thinking of what else I could do. I always wanted to go to the Olympics, compete in the Paralympics, and that to me is like the pinnacle of the world stage. It's every country that can qualify, and the best of the best, the 1% of the 1%. And actually, Team USA Track and Field reached out to me at that tournament, and then when I left, they wanted me to go to a time trial down at UVA at the University of Virginia, and I did. And they reached out and they said, "Hey, have you ever run track professionally? Have you ever done it to stay fit for football?" And it was something I grew up in middle school. I was on the track team, but I ran distance. I ran the mile and I ran the 800, which is 2 laps around the track. And thinking about that now, knowing the amount of training and everything that I've done for track and field, that makes me sick to my stomach thinking about distance track
Yeah.
training. But from that point on, it was sort of just an idea. And then I went down to UVA, ran those time trials, and it became real. I ran a lot better than I thought I would. I knew I was going to be competing in sprinting events that I've never done before. And I went to my coach and said, I want to go to Tokyo. I want to qualify and, go there and win a medal. And he kind of chuckled. And he's been training Olympic track athletes for over 20 years. So he knows what it takes. He knows, the gruesome process to get there. And he chuckled, got up and walked out of the room. And I was confused. And he said, "We'll talk about it tomorrow, come back in tomorrow." And so the next day I came back in, sat at a table across from him and said, "I'm going to go to Tokyo and I'm going to win a gold medal and you're going to train me to do so." And he said, "Okay." And it was the change in demeanor that I had of I want to do this to I'm going to do this. And, and then from that day on, from November of 2019 up until 2021, and obviously given that extra year, was something very unique and very crucial to my training. But I was training 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, nonstop for 16 months to go to Tokyo, and then went there and did what I did, and I'm very proud and very honored to be in the position I am now and grateful. But I'm hungry still. There's a lot more I want
Yeah.
to do. I know that I'm just scraping the surface of track and field, and I'm actually very very blessed that I was given the extra year to be able to train. Given COVID, it was sort of a blessing in disguise because in 2020, if I had gone to Tokyo when it was scheduled to be, I think I would have gone as a soccer player trying to run track. that extra year gave me what I needed to actually become a true track athlete. And, I went there and did everything. And now I'm comfortable to be able to sit here today and say that I am a true track athlete running track and field. I'm not a soccer athlete trying to run fast anymore. I did what I did, and I'm just scraping the surface of the sport, and I'm super excited to do it all again in Paris.
Yeah, yeah, that's super, super exciting to hear. And I do want to dive into one of the points that you were making, though, about making that transition from soccer to track and field, because I'm sure a lot of people will understand that, switching sports is difficult. Doing it at literally the highest level in the world is an incredibly difficult feat, especially if
Hmm.
you layer on the fact that you have cerebral palsy on top of it. So,
Hmm.
what I'm curious about, Nick, is obviously that's a pretty physically demanding and grueling process. You told us about your practice schedule, for example. But I
Hmm.
have to imagine it also kind of took a toll on you mentally and emotionally. And one of the things that kind of flipped the switch with both you and your coach was adopting kind of like that bulletproof mentality of like, look, I'm not going there just to show up and get a participation medal. I'm going to show up there and I'm going to win. So, can you tell us about what that transition was like, not just physically, but also like mentally in terms of being prepared to compete in a completely different type of sport?
Yeah, it was completely insane. It
Yeah,
was definitely the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, in my career and in my life, because it also helped me develop, as a man off the track, off the field, just personally, because I was forced to battle a lot of things that I use sport to hide. I personally, ever since I was diagnosed with CP and went through that, I've been struggling mentally for a long, long time, with mental health, and it becoming such an illuminated, the awareness and everything going on, especially with Simone in Tokyo, it's become, hit another level of importance to, talk about and understand and really, and accept that it's here. It's something that you need to take care of before it gets, super bad. And I remember when the first thing that I did when I took this proposition to my coach, sitting across from that table, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm going to do this. It was that change in demeanor. And the first thing I did was look up the world record for the 100, look up the world record for the 200, and look up the world record for the 400. And, I had those three. And the first thing I did when I moved to North Carolina into my new apartment was I before I did anything else, set up anything, I wrote down on 3 sheets of paper the times, and I taped them on every single wall I had in my house. So it would be the first thing I saw when I woke up, and then the very last thing I saw before I went to bed. And it was just and ingraining it into my brain of seeing those times and knowing that when I went to Tokyo, the time that I saw on the clock were going to be faster than those times, and it's something that I always did. And my coach in all of my training, all of those 18 months, we never timed myself once, not a single time.
really.
That was something that really frustrated me because I wanted to know where I was at, but and
Right.
he would never let me do it. My brother would never let me time myself, never let me. And there were days that I would try to run with a stopwatch and see if I could do it and time myself or watch myself on video. And I had
Yeah.
a general idea of the times I was running, but I could never really pinpoint it. And it was because my coach, it was an ego thing for me. He said, "Why do
Hmm.
you want to know? If you run faster than you think, then you're not going to work as hard. But if you don't, it's only going to upset you. And so why do it?" And I understood that. And there was a lot of things that I learned throughout that process that changed me just as an athlete and a man. For the funny enough, the first 4.5, 5 months of my track training, my coach didn't even directly work with me. We would go to the track, and he would have the track starting blocks, and he would throw them on the track and say, you go and look up YouTube, learn how to do the start yourself. And I would literally, he said, "You're not even
Hmm.
worth my time. I've been doing this for 20, 25 years. You need to
Yeah.
you need to change. You need to do this." And I didn't
Hmm.
understand what he meant by it, and until after those 5 months, when he would come out and he would just sit there and watch me. He wouldn't coach me. He wouldn't do anything for every day that we were on the track for almost 5 months. And I didn't understand, and it really frustrated me because I would sit there on my phone at the track with my track spikes, training to go to the Olympics, the world stage, and I would be there watching Usain Bolt, like on my phone and just seeing how he could do it, and teaching myself. And I really, because in that year, he understood that I hit a pinnacle of U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, and I came in on such a high. I was considered, one of the best, pair seven-a-side soccer players in the world, if not the best. And having that mentality of, every time I walk onto the field, I'm the best one, and I know I am. To then
Right.
walking on the track, having that soccer mentality of, oh, because I'm fast, I can do this. And it really broke me down, and I had to relearn how to run. Break down to the basics of learning how to run to begin with. And it was a very grueling process to be able to have that realization of, I suck at this. I am terrible
Yeah.
at track and field. I do not know nothing. I do not know anything about the sport of track and field, and I really need to accept that. And it was very, very humbling to just be a sponge and just learn everything about the sport of track and field, and truly
Hmm.
learn how to run as a track athlete, and just very vertical and very robotic and very like powerful. And it's very different from soccer. And soccer is a 360 rotational sport, and track and field is just a linear. So it was very frustrating. And there were days, and that I didn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. where my brother would come and bang on my door and make sure I was up, stretching, doing my yoga for an hour and a half, and stretching in the mornings, eating the right things at the right times throughout the day, and getting to the track, and being there for a couple of hours, then coming home and eating, going to the gym, and staying on that schedule every single day, was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But it was well worth it, going to the trials, and breaking the world record at trials, and then being frustrated with myself because I knew I could run faster. I ran a slow time.
Yeah.
I know I can run faster than that. And then getting to Tokyo, and then running the times that I did, and really, just being able to do it
Hmm.
and know that I did it was just such an incredible feeling. So, but the process, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. It was the most humbling thing I ever had to do. And now I can sit here and say I'm a true track athlete. I'm better as an athlete. I'm better as a man, knowing that I had to go through those things and confront those identity issues, or personality issues, or the ego that I had as a soccer athlete trying to run track. And being
Hmm.
around other track Olympians and seeing them work. I remember going to Chula Vista, the Olympic Training Center in San Diego, and just sitting there and watch these Olympic athletes train. And
Yeah.
I didn't even have to train that day, and I would sit there and for hours just watching them, and watching their strides, watching their starts, just watching their recovery habits and what they do, and studying it, and really trying to add it to my routine, and just being a true student to the sport. And just accepting that I went from such a high of, winning soccer player of the year, and being, this soccer player, to then being an absolute nobody in the world of track and field. And, to
Yeah.
rebuild that, and really restructure it to be able to go do what I did in Tokyo was, insane to do in 18 months. But that's just the
Yeah.
type of athlete and type of person I am. Once I think about something, when I put my mind to it, I'm going to do it, at 110% every single day, to try to exceed the expectations that I set for myself. And that's with anything
Hmm.
that, especially the things that come in the future, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's pretty incredible what you've been able to accomplish. It's almost like
Thank
building
you.
a muscle, right? It has to be torn down in order for it to come back that much stronger. And it
Exactly.
sounds like you went through a very, very extreme version of that, and came out the other side that much stronger. And now you're kind of in a position, Nick, where the Paralympic world is literally at your fingertips. So I'm sure the question on everybody's mind is what's next for Nick Mayhew? Is he going to take the Lolo Jones cool runnings route and pivot to the Winter Paralympics? Is he going to return to the soccer pitch, or is he going to focus his efforts on absolutely dominating the sport of track and field, or is it all three?
I think you just answered it yourself. It's actually I haven't really publicly told anybody, but yeah, that's definitely the next thing I'm gonna do is all three. I actually, in January, we're picking back up with the seven-a-side national soccer team, which I'm super excited about, to get out there, put my boots back on. For the first time in almost 2 years.
Wow.
It's been a little over 2 years since I've played an actual competitive professional game for soccer, and that's weird enough to say. It's a different feeling, putting on those boots and stepping out on the pitch and with a ball at my feet, and something I grew up, which is second nature to me, and I feel more comfortable now as a track athlete these last 2 years than I do, walking onto a soccer field and putting those cleats on. So it's weird, but I'm excited. I'm excited to get back. We have the CP World Cup in in April of 22 in Barcelona. So hopefully, I'll be called up for that and, be able to go there and compete. And then it's right back to track training, 24/7. We'll probably get back into that. I have the World Championships for track and field in Kobe, Japan in August. So I'll be full drive into training with that. And then, after that, it's just reprogramming everything for the next, year and a half to get to Paris in 24. It'll be track 24/7 full time, getting there and hopefully breaking the barriers that I set, in Tokyo. My plan is to go there and run in, 4 events that I did and, hopefully come back with 4 gold medals and 4 more world records. I've set the times that I sat down with my coach as soon as we got back from Tokyo, and I said, I want to run this time in the 100, this time in the 2, this time in the 4, and then, as a team, we'll run this in the 4x1 and hopefully break the barriers that we set. But I'm just scratching the surface in track and field, and I think that that'll be probably priority number 1 for hopefully at least the next 2 Olympic cycles to come, which I'm super excited about, super hungry about, and I can just feel it. I'm just getting antsy, and my palms are sweating right now just thinking about it. I wish I could just go train, but and then actually, I've had a couple of my track teammates actually make the switch to the Winter Paralympics and snowboarding. And actually, Team USA Snowboarding reached out and asked me if I, have ever run snowboard or ever run snowboard, ever, snowboarded before, and I go snowboarding, at least I try to go once a year with my brother. Obviously I have to be a little more careful with my training for track and field, but I always do it for fun, but I never really took it serious. And they said, well, there's a whole classification, we don't have a lot of athletes that are classified specifically in your classification. So if it's something that, you're interested in, then let us know. And if it wasn't for the injury that I picked up in Tokyo, I think I would have full gunned it to try to make it to the Winter Paralympics in March. But that's a little too soon. So I chose to relax, to fully heal and focus on 22. And that focus after Paris, after we go and do what we do in Paris, it will definitely fully switch to snowboarding. And that's what's next, is to sport-wise, career-wise, to definitely transition then from a soccer athlete to a track athlete, then to a snowboarder. And it's gonna, I'm very eager, very excited. It's gonna be interesting to say the least. But after that, then I think I'll take a deep breath and just relax a little bit, and we'll see, get back to track and field and see what's next for LA, because then it's just less than 2 years until LA, and then and by then it's crazy to even think about, and to think that like, oh, it's just a dream. It's kind of crazy for you to say you want to do all 3. Can you actually do it? And it's another to actually take a breath and realize that, I did it with soccer, with having CP, people telling me that, I was never going to be able to play professionally. I was never going to be able to go and play Division 1, win a couple championships, score against some of the top teams in the country, and then, play for your national team. And I did it. And then, me sitting across the table from my coach for track and field and saying, I'm going to go to Tokyo, win a medal, and, break a world record, and, going and doing it 3 times, winning 3 gold medals and a silver in an event that I'd never run professionally before or trained for, because medically I couldn't train for the 400. The training for that was too gruesome. It sent me to the hospital a couple of times, and it's something that I had to be careful with strategically. My doctor actually told me to stop training for it, and that if I didn't, then it was going to realistically cause a lot of harm, and I could end up killing myself doing it. But I registered for it for Tokyo Games and went out and ran my best, not having trained for it, and to come away with the silver is not too shabby. And I'm excited to I'm excited to then, after Paris, completely change my focus and just break myself down as a track athlete and try to learn the sport of snowboarding professionally and true. And it's exciting. But there's probably going to be a bunch of people telling me that I wouldn't be able to do it, or, hopefully by then the people will start to accept and see what I've done and look at my resume and be like, okay, maybe he can do it, and hopefully decide to support rather than, try to break me down. But there's a yin and yang, there's a, it's very, there's very positive with the very negative that I get. So, I'm used to it by now, and it's just fuel to the fire. It's just motivation to me now. And I'm super excited to see where it's going to go.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like you have your dreams at your fingertips, and I don't think many people in the world can say that. So, I mean, just big congratulations to you for even being willing to take that on.
Thank you
And
so much.
I guess for all the ladies and gentlemen watching here today and watching the recording, you could be looking at the next greatest Paralympic athlete, literally of all time. So, just keep an eye out for Nick Mayhew in the upcoming years. But Nick, I think everybody here is like probably blown away by your athletic accomplishments, all that you've been able to do. But in our conversations together, the things that have really stood out to me are not just the athletic accomplishments and the trophies and the medals, because there's, countless of those, but really the work that it took you to get there and the challenges that you face. And I think that although obviously those challenges are unique to you and your situation, I think a lot of people listening here today will be able to resonate with a lot of, just the challenges that you went through growing up. And like you were saying at the beginning of our talk today, discovering that you had a disability for the first time. So I want to kind of pivot the conversation over to talking about disabilities and the concept of invisible disabilities a little bit more, given that we will be sending this out on International Day for People with Disabilities. So for
Hmm.
those in the crowd who are not aware, the definition of an invisible disability is a physical, mental, or neurological condition that is not visible from the outside, yet can limit or challenge a person's movements, senses, or activities. And unfortunately, the very fact that these symptoms are invisible can lead to misunderstandings, false perceptions, and judgments. And I think that definition is really good. It's comprehensive, but it does focus on the invisibility from an external perspective. So, from like people looking from the outside in. But I think what some people might not be aware of is that disabilities can sometimes manifest their invisibility internally as well. So, in your case specifically, you mentioned this earlier in the call, you were not diagnosed with CP until you were 14 years old. So you spent 14
Hmm.
years of your life just feeling like, hey, there might be something a little bit off with me, but I'm not sure what it was. And then at
Hmm.
age of 14, out of nowhere, thunderbolt out of the blue, you become the disabled kid. So I'm
Hmm.
curious, Nick, what was it suddenly like being reclassified as like the disabled kid, which you have expressed earlier has a negative connotation to it. So what was it like
Yeah,
going through that process and then trying to like accept it afterwards?
that's, I mean, that's the thing that I struggled with, accepting it because, I lived, such a large majority of my life just considering myself, normal and, able-bodied and, not even having to think about uh, trying to describe yourself in a different way or, like having
Mhm.
a word to describe or label you as something else, and there's when you speak about indivisible disabilities as well, cerebral palsy, if you Google it, you'll see the common, crooked wrist or, closed fist, because of the spasticity, or, somebody's arm or their leg or are sort of crooked or, locked in a certain position, or it's super loose. And there's different types of CP. And with cerebral palsy specifically, there's such a wide range of cases. There's some, super mild like mine, where if you were to see me play soccer or run on the track, you may, to the untrained medical eye, you may not be able to, see it, until I get super fatigued. Or, just if you're sitting on the call today and just you see my right eyebrow all the time always gets like raised, is that I can only raise my right eyebrow. So, and I can't
Mhm.
really like raise my left. And so it's just little subtle things like that that I picked up on growing up, but other people never really noticed, and they wouldn't look at, my right eyebrow and be like, oh, he's disabled. So it's very, and then after I was diagnosed,
Mhm.
it was very, it was very tough, to accept it. And, it was a very hard time for me. And because I was just frustrated with the world. And I often, when I was so ignorant to the idea of, accepting it. I was ignorant to the word disability. I was ignorant to cerebral palsy. I just didn't know. I was uneducated. And, there was such a negative connotation towards the word disabled or disability, that I just didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to accept it. And so I, hid it from virtually everyone for a long, long time, until I, educated myself and I realized how much of a positive, effect it could have on me if I had accepted it, and, other people if I spoke about it. And that's what encouraged me to publicly speak about it, because the step one is to educate people, with anything.
Right.
They're going to have a twisted or, ignorant idea of what something is if they're uneducated about it, and they're going to immediately form their own opinion on it, whether they are, knowledgeable about the situation or not, or, the word or any type of, thing there is. But once you educate yourself, then you're able to make an educated, opinion on it and understanding of it. And that's the biggest thing is if I, what I want to do in, my life is to never allow there to be another kid to have lived the life that I live. And what I mean by that is to grow up for 21 years of their life knowing that they're not knowing that there is an entire world of the Paralympics or of anything within disabled sport that they could be accepted in, that they could compete in, that that they could be
Right.
celebrated in, and really make a change. And the first step is education, and talking about it and being open about it and accepting of it, and
Hmm.
just and because there's so many, because I don't have because I have four limbs and I'm not in a wheelchair, or I'm not visually impaired and walk with a cane, or run with a guide. There's a lot of things that you can see and you can say, oh, there, he has a disability, or he's an amputee, or he's
Right.
blind, or something of that nature. And unfortunately, a lot of times when I meet people and tell them I compete in the Paralympics, they say, what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong. That's and
Hmm.
and it's very tough. But the first part and the most critical, I think, is to being open to learning about it. And that's with especially the last couple of years. And that's been such a shift in the culture of society, is being open to learning about new things that you set aside, or
Right.
put didn't want to learn about it, if that's the case, or just being unaware that it was an issue. And this is just another thing that you have to just start the conversation and educate people. Because oftentimes when I go and speak to schools and younger kids, I'll open my talk with, how many people have heard about the Olympics, and everyone will raise their hand. And then I'll say, how many people have heard about
Hmm.
the Special Olympics? And depending on age group, some may raise their hands, some may not. And then I always, till this day, I've always said, how many people know about the Paralympics? And not one person will raise their hand. And then you'll let a couple seconds go by, and then there'll be one person who raised their hand just because they want to be the different one. And then I'll call on them
Yeah.
and ask, and they say, I actually don't know. I'm sorry. And I've never gotten an actual true answer. And that's because
Hmm.
no one really knows. And then then I'll describe it and educate them. And then the first thing they'll do is, but there's nothing wrong with you. You're not missing, and go down that route. So it's just a cycle of, of the same
Right.
conversation. And until we break that cycle, the conversation won't grow. And that's probably the biggest thing, is for me personally, accepting it and understanding it, and then learning about it, and then noticing the positive change that I could have on other people. And the amount of positive feedback that I've gotten has been better than any gold medal, any world record, any of the accolades or materialistic things. If I can positively have a change in somebody else's life, parent
Right.
or child, whether it be athletically or not, just to help them accept that life, is better than any type of amount of money or any medal or record I can do. So it's, for me personally, it was very, very hard. And it's something that I still battle with today, and still learning about it. I learn something new every day, whether it be about myself and my disability, and do something and go, oh, I can't do that. I have to completely shift my
Yeah.
body, or do it with my right hand. Or I'm at Weston's house. He has a piano, and I sat there and I'm trying to teach myself how to play piano. And I actually Googled how piano songs I can play with one hand, and just things that
Yeah.
I trying to teach myself. So I'm still learning too. And you're never too old to start learning. It's never too late. And the more positive the conversation can be, the better you know life will be, the better society will be, especially in the disabled community.
Right, right, and I love that attitude because it's like you almost have to educate yourself, create that change within
Hmm.
yourself before you can manifest that in the world around you, and I think it's so important that people like you are doing that because without that education, society's expectations stay in place. And I think we've spoken about this separately, but one of the most dangerous things about disabilities are the societal expectations that come with them,
Hmm.
right? And essentially this idea that if you have a disability, you're handicapped, you're impaired,
Hmm.
you can't do a certain thing, right? And
Hmm.
I think these expectations can almost be like even more insidious than just outright ableism because it can condition young kids with disabilities to think that they are incapable or
Hmm.
permanently unable to do things that they could if they found a different way that maybe somebody hadn't thought of before. So
Hmm.
if you could, what would you like to tell like all those kids around the world that might be experiencing something like that?
That it's okay. You know, the two that it's never too late to start. That's for one. You know, I found out when I was 21 years old, and for elite sport, for elite athletes and professional, professional careers in general. 21, is sort of some people's primes. Some people will only, depending on the sport you go into, it's different and it varies, but it's never too late, especially within the Paralympics, because the Paralympics are such a unique community. It's a very unique organization. It's a very unique type of sport. Your longevity and your prime could last a lot longer, and I'm very grateful to be in the position I'm in. But for one, it's never too late to learn. It's never too late to start, and no matter what it is. And the second thing, and the most important thing that I always try to remember for myself and try to educate other people on, is that it's okay to not be okay. It's I grew up my entire life hiding it from everybody, and I now sitting here today, I'm glad I did what I did, because then it has made me the man I am today. And I think if I
Right.
was diagnosed early, I think I would have given myself an excuse to not work as hard. But just being told no so often, and being told that it was just my weak side, it was just I was right hand and right foot dominant. It's okay, you'll learn, you'll it's normal, it's normal. And knowing that it wasn't normal, and knowing that sooner or later it was going to come out medically, and pushing myself to work that much harder to be better than the
Right.
kid next to me, knowing that I didn't have the full use of my left side, that I did my right, helped me. And uh, but I think that once you realize that it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be frustrated, it's okay to you know be different, and understand that you are, and accept that. The sooner you can do that, the better your life will be. Because for a long, long time, for me, for 21 years of my life, I was just frustrated and angry, and it took a toll on my body, physically and mentally, and especially
Hmm.
emotionally. And at the detriment of my own family, my closest friends, and my loved ones. And it's the biggest thing, and what I always try to speak about when I publicly speak, is that it's okay to not be okay. You don't have, nobody's perfect. You don't have to put a smile on every time you
Yeah.
step out of the house, or behind closed door. You don't have to fake it. Just be you. And and people of the world, especially the disabled community, the Paralympic sport world, will accept you who you are, because no matter if you have a label or not, we're just people. We're normal people.
Yeah.
And I don't like the word Paralympic. I don't like the word para, because it gives a different, you know the first thing you think of is something that it's not standard for.
Yeah.
I think the adaptability is the right word, being able to adapt, because that's all we're doing. We're adapting to a normal world made for normal people. And if you're going to label us as something else, that we're not normal, then we're now trying to conform to a normal world that wasn't built necessarily for us. And I think that
Right.
we're just extraordinary efforts to adapt to whatever challenges or things we may come. And it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. I do all the time. And try to
Hmm.
I speak with a couple of different therapists, and I have for a long, long time, because it's better to talk about it. It makes me personally feel better, just having a better understanding of who I am as a man,
Yeah.
and understanding my feelings, and knowing that no matter what, it's okay. And the sooner you realize that, the better your life will be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a message that everyone watching here today can resonate with. So thank you for being willing to share that with us. Now, I'm going to start to wrap up my questions here because I know we've got a couple of audience questions that I want to make sure we can get to. So I've
Okay.
got two more for you before we pivot over to those. So that's also a plug to the crowd. If you got any questions that you want to hear Nick answer, go ahead and send them in to us. But going through those last two questions real quick here, Nick, you've
Hmm.
alluded to it a couple of times, but one of the biggest challenges that you've faced in the Paralympics is people thinking that you are not disabled enough to be able to compete. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, when you're walking around in society, people are like, well, he's too disabled enough to be considered normal, right? So how do you navigate that experience of being considered like too able or too good for the Paralympics by other athletes and observers while being considered too disabled to be quote unquote normal?
It's a very blurred line, because I tried now so deep in my career. I've been involved with the Paralympics since 2017. So it's been a
Right.
couple of years, and I have some experience and understanding of that blurred line. But I don't really pay it any mind because of I often introduce myself and people ask what I do and I tell them, and then they if I kind of leave the conversation right there, and if they want to learn, then they can go and learn about what CP is, or the wide range of it, and what it entails, and what the Paralympics are, and the different classes. And what people don't realize is
Right.
that I'm running and competing against, in track and field specifically, other athletes in the same classification as me, in the same type of severity of my
Hmm.
disability. So these same athletes have the same level of severity of cerebral palsy, and these athletes are elite athletes. They're the 1% of the
Yeah.
1% within their respected disability in the world. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that I'm not you know cheating the system, or trying to find a
Yeah.
workaround to be able to win. I mean, these it funny enough, in all the races that we ran in Tokyo, every single athlete there ran their best time there. And I think it's because, we had such good competition, and all of those athletes ran personal best. They set, their country's records, every single one of them. And if you go look, you can fact check me if you want. It was incredible. And after that, a lot of the athletes, came to me and thanked me, and said that I pushed them, and I thank them for pushing me. And it's just a very blurred line of knowing when to have that conversation and try to educate someone, or just letting it go and allowing them to do it themselves. Because a majority of people come to me genuinely asking about and wanting to know genuinely because they want to
Right.
understand. And then there's obviously some people that just try to do it to poke fun, or to get under my skin and get a
Hmm.
reaction out of me. And those are the types of situations that you kind of just have to let go. And it's
Yeah.
definitely a learning experience still, but it's a blurred line.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning about it all.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like you said earlier, it's a process for dealing with it. So, keep fighting the good fight, and I'm sure, it'll never officially end, right? But, with
No.
each person you educate, that creates a network effect of more and more people being aware and more knowledgeable. So people like you putting yourself on the line for that, I think, is definitely paving the way for future generations. But I do have one last question for you here before we
Okay.
pivot over to some of those audience questions, and it's my personal favorite question that I get to ask you today, because I think it'll really be revealing about your personality. But I'm curious, Nick, what do you wish all those people who tell you you aren't disabled enough knew?
I don't necessarily know, what I want them to know. I think that, me personally, I'm very, you see me, and you get what you see, and you can understand, if you meet me, if you hear me speak about the things that I'm passionate about, you understand the type of man and type of athlete that I am. But it's to just being, I want them to know that you know that it's okay to educate yourself, it's okay to not know. And if you
Yeah.
want to know more specifically about CP or me, you can go and buy my merch, and on the back of my t-shirt and hoodies that I'm selling, that it's my MRI scan, and it's proof that I am an invisible disability athlete, and I am disabled. And I'm very accepting of that. And it's the very first piece of merchandise that I came out with. I have my logo on the front side and my big MRI on the back. It's right there, and so you can wear it around, and educate
Hmm.
yourself, and know that, like, when you speak about me, you can understand that, oh, the first thing that comes into mind is, oh, he is disabled. And it's more than it meets the eye visually, and it's a better understanding. But I'm looking forward to continue to educating people, and continuing to see people just learn more and understand more about, whether it be me or Paralympic sport in general, because it's not about me. And I hope one day people are able to correlate me with Paralympics and the disabled community in such a positive way that it'll just those two things will come together. And so there's nothing really
Yeah.
personally that I would like people to know. It's just just if you're wondering, go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we will make sure to link your website in the description of this video. So if you feel so inclined, go buy Nick's clothing. You can wear his brain around on your back everywhere that
Exactly.
you go, which I love that concept. So I know we're now kind of about 10 minutes left in the conversation. So I want to go ahead and open it up to the audience questions because I'm sure everybody's sick of hearing me talk by now. So yeah, so if we could get the first one of those up. All right, so we have a question from John Rose, who is actually a team member of the Disability Alliance in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So good teammate of mine. So John says in your bio, it says you had a chip on your shoulder when you were younger due to people not believing your CP systems. And John's curious, does that spirit still drive you today? And if not, how has it evolved?
Oh, it's still there. I can see it right here. It's
Yeah,
never going away. It's just like having a little devil on your shoulder. And I remember growing up and always being told no. In grade school specifically, I failed the recorder in elementary school, the little plastic
yeah.
flute in music class. I failed the recorder because I couldn't feel the holes on the recorder with my left hand, and I could every you had to get a
Mm,
certain amount of ribbons to be able to pass the recorder, and I only had one ribbon because there was one song I could play with my right hand, and I will never forget it,
yeah.
and I hate that thing. But my music teacher telling me nothing was wrong and that I was just being a defiant kid, and then coaches and my parents telling
Mhm.
me no, and people just telling me no, and there wasn't, and to their credit, there wasn't enough evidence to really give them a reason to believe it. But just being told no just really developed a chip on my shoulder because then it developed into playing for some of the top academies in the world, or in the country, and
Yeah.
and then telling me you're not good enough. It's you're not going to be able to go play professionally. You're not going to be able to do this or that, and just telling me and giving me all this motivation and fire, and just
Mhm.
to add to the chip. And the further I get in my career, the bigger it grows, because now the chip has turned into my own personal feats, my own personal, eagerness and fire to what's next, and to beat myself. And when I look in that mirror, that's my biggest competition. And so that chip on my shoulder is always there, and it's always evolving. I'm
Yeah.
very proud and very blessed to be in the position I'm in, given what I did in Tokyo, and I'll never exclude that. But to me, it's in the past. There's nothing, I can rave about it forever, and be one of those people to celebrate my successes for as long as they come. But they're there and they're done, and now it's a matter of how much faster can I run, what can I do in Paris, how many more of my own records can I break, and what can I do. And it's just that
Yeah.
chip on my shoulder, that little devil on my shoulder telling me to keep on going and be better and be better, and that'll never change.
For sure, and it almost sounds like that chip on your shoulder is almost like your superpower, right? Like, that's what fuels you, that's what motivates you, that's what gives you
Hmm.
the attitude to, the audacity to walk into a coach's office and to tell them you're gonna win a gold medal in an event you've never ran before in 18 months, and I think that that's awesome. But I also think, like, one of the points that you made there was really cool as well, where it sounds like initially the chip on your shoulder was more so focused on proving other people wrong and
Hmm.
demonstrating that, like, you could do the things that they couldn't tell you. But now it sounds like that's almost evolved, and you're not competing with anybody else anymore. That chip on your shoulder is with your previous self, and you're just trying to beat
Hmm.
yourself every day, which I think is a really, really awesome message. So thank you for sharing that. I think we've got a couple more questions here, so let's see if we can get another one up on the screen. All right, Megan Hammond, another one of my teammates over here at the Disability Alliance. And Megan says, if you could go back in time and give your 14-year-old self one piece of advice after being diagnosed, what would it be?
Um, I actually just spoke about this to my therapist the other day. Um, she asked me the same thing, and the answer is the same. It's
Hmm.
that I just see myself putting my arm around my younger self and saying everything's going to be okay. I was such a I was in such a dark place mentally, battling demons, and just like not understanding the world, and just being frustrated of why me, why I lied. I was told, the day after I had my grand mal seizure, that I would never be able to play soccer again, and it
Yeah.
completely flipped my world upside down. And I was at a loss for what I was going to do with my life. The only thing I ever want to do is play professional soccer, be a professional athlete, and it was really tough. So just to be able to say, that everything's going to be okay no matter, what happens is,
Hmm.
it's probably the biggest thing. Weston peeking in, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's probably the one thing, is that everything's going to be okay, and just continue to do what you do, and believe in yourself, and everything's going to work out just as it has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a piece of advice that a lot of us would love to hear from our future selves. But again, you making that a reality, I think is a great sign to everyone here. So I think we might have time for one, maybe two more questions. So let's see if we've got another. All right, Lindsay Nicholas, another member of our Disability Alliance core team. We've got all the questions here today. So Lindsay says, "Hey Nick, thank you for joining. What are some of the best ways you've found to stay motivated training over a long period of time? And how do you refocus if you start to lose motivation?"
That's a very good question, and very easy to answer.
Hmm.
It's to try to knock it back down and remember the reason why you started. One of the things that kept me focused was writing those times down and putting them on my walls. And just every time that I had any doubt or any lack of motivation, I would just look at those, and that's all I needed. Just seeing those every single day and knowing that I was going to beat them and beat every single one of those times, which I ended up did I ended up doing. Was amazing. And then, another piece to it is to remember why I started and my family. Immediately I think of my mom, and just she's the sole reason why I do what I do, is to be able to hopefully be in a position one day to repay her. And I can't give her back the time that her, my dad, and my brother, sacrificed um, for me, and to be able to live my dreams, and to live my dreams, and be able to do what I did now. But it's been incredible, and it's definitely one of the main things I think about often, is you know why I started, and wanting to put my family in a position to repay them for all the money that they've spent, all the time that they lost, and sacrificing their work and their weekends to drive me 6 7 hours to a tournament, to be recruited by somebody, and just doing that, and
Yeah.
just really motivating me to be the best I can be for them. It's not necessarily a personal feat that I want to do for myself, but it motivates me knowing that one day I'll be able to buy my mom a beach house, and so she'll never have to work another day in her life, or
Yeah.
and take care of her, and and be able to do things with my brother and my dad, and make them happy as well. As just to be able to see it come full circle is the only motivation I need. And there are a lot of more negative days than there are positive. Trying to wake up at every day, those 6 a.m. banging on my
Right.
door calls from my brother. Those days I don't want to get up, I don't want to train, I don't want to eat or do anything. It's tough. There are a lot more negative days than there are positive, but you try to just remember what why you started, and the goals that you have, and and those are really what keep me going. um, and probably the one of the main things that I try to do to stay focused, or mentally sane, is I'm really big into meditation. I've now gotten really big into talking about my feelings, and opening up and talking to therapists, talking to professionals who are educated to help you, because
Mhm.
I would I'd always kept it so secure and tight for my entire life, because I thought that was wrong. But um those things. And then one of the biggest things for me is staying off social media, and try
Yeah.
to stay off, see what everyone else is doing, all the negative things that might be happening or whatever, and just try to keep some sort of sanity and peacefulness amongst yourself, because those long 18 months I did nothing for that entire time, other than train 10 hours a day, 6 days a week,
Right.
sacrificing friendships and your relationships, with family and others that I'm never going to get back. And understanding and remembering why, and trying to take care of yourself physically and mentally, is probably the biggest thing. Me, be in the position I'm in now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer, and I know it's going to resonate with every Googler in the audience here today, and hopefully a lot of other
Hmm.
people who are watching this recording as well. So we've kind of made it to the end here, but I want to give you one last chance, because you've shared with us your athletic plans for the future, but I know that's obviously not the only thing that you're doing. So do you have
Hmm.
any last words about some other initiatives, business things that you have coming up, or anything else you'd like to promote?
I do. I actually have a book coming out. The title is
Okay.
the title is un is it still it's still a work in progress. It'll come out
Okay.
probably I'll probably have my book done. I've been working on it for a month or so. It'll probably be done hopefully before the World Cup in April. If not before, definitely will be by next summer. So I'm super excited about that,
Yeah.
and what we're creating with that. And then, to be able to just continue to, advocate for, the Paralympic sport and the disabled community. Something I'm super, passionate about, publicly speaking, telling my story and trying to, motivate others and educate others on, things outside of myself. And then also, I'm planning to find my own foundation and create that, and really just sort of, you know,
Yeah.
build that to be something that, people can really, resonate with and learn about, whether it be, CP specifically, or, disability in general. So, those three things are something that I'm super excited and passionate about, and that are hopefully going to come into fruition within the next year or two.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, with your track record so far, no pun intended, I think I have no doubt
I
in my mind
see.
that you're gonna get there. Yeah, so you got it. Awesome, awesome. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today. I know it's late out in Italy, so I want to say thank you again for taking the time to share with us. You're already well on your way towards motivating a lot of people. I know I myself feel that, and I'm sure everybody else in the crowd will as well. So thanks again for taking the time to speak with us, and best of luck with those future endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.